Hi guys, and welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. We help Muslims and non-Muslims alike to understand and handle Islam in the 21st century. We consider ourselves to be decent human beings, so we condemn categorically any abuse, oppression, misogyny, slavery, violence, anything like that. We do embrace, however, free speech and also criticism, even if it is directed at us, if it is factual and constructive criticism. We focus on Islam exclusively. So if you're curious about anything Islam, you've come to the right place. Now, we don't attack, which is aggressive, destructive, and antagonistic, neither Islam nor Muslims. We ask questions and show facts. We refute false claims and present the reality of Islam, which is political Islam. We inspect, investigate, research, analyze, and then report and critique on Islam, the ideology, not the people. Now, the live stream goes to YouTube and Facebook, and there are three ways that you can participate in this. Either you join us in the live written chat, you can join the panel during the live show, or later on watch and comment the archive. And anyone can join to comment, critique, contribute, or question. This is not a Dawa channel with censorship. Don't go to Patreon, don't go to PayPal. Everything here is free. The way we work is usually we have some news, some Krazy Komments, a segment where we go and read the Quran, and then a discussion on the theme of the month, followed by integrating the live chat, ending with a Hadith of the week. If this is not enough Islam for you, there's still the Discord channel where you can discuss with us without anything being recorded. See you later and enjoy the Gin and Tonic Show. Hello. Welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. It is Friday. It is the 25th of June 2021. And we're going to have a very, very quiet, laid-back session today because it's just going to be Rob and me. Hello, sir. How are you doing this beautiful evening?
Good evening. How are you, Stops? Good evening to all the viewers live, and if you're watching this as a recording later. Yeah, all good. I'm sitting downstairs. My office is otherwise engaged, and so I'm looking out at a summer's evening here from the porch, basically, indoors, but looking out through the windows. So yeah, it's all good.
Yeah,
how about you?
Yeah, I'm a little bit. I'm not used to physical work anymore. Really, I must admit, because this week we've done some cleaning out of cupboards and things like that, throwing away old books and stuff because there was simply it was a mess. You just accumulate more and more. So I'm not used to carting out stuff and putting them into bags and then dragging them outside and things like. Wow, I must admit, 2 days of sweaty work is amazing. So I feel like exhausted. But hey.
Well, weekend rest time, hey? Time for a rest.
Yeah, it's going to be a quiet weekend, this one. Okay, what have we got in store for you? Well, it's very much the same thing. What we're going to do is we're going to go through a couple of... let me start off with the motivational stuff because this is always it's so inspiring for me to see these things. Okay, this one, I think these are so weird, okay? True love doesn't end at death. If Allah wills it, it'll continue in Jannah. I mean, this is so silly. I don't know. Rob, do you want to comment this?
Yeah, well, obviously, assuming that there was some sort of afterlife, how do you know that you're going to see it? Is this just, has he told you this? Is it somewhere in any of the Hadiths or the Quran? I've not come across it, but maybe you can infer it somewhere. But how are you going to recognize the people? What does people look like up there? There's all of these unknowns. Let's assume there was some sort of afterlife. It's certainly not the afterlife. I don't know that it would be true love or even what they would look like up there. So it's baffling. But hey, as long as it sounds good, I guess that's one way of putting it.
And we have more stuff. I thought you were still stuck at the airport or something.
Oh, welcome. No, I'm just making some breakfast. So, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu to Rob speakers and to Mr. Stops. Brothers, I look forward to the discussion today, brothers.
Yeah. Well, we're just looking at the inspirational poster for the week.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
if
true
you
love.
are a slave girl, if you are a slave girl,
Yeah.
what can, and you're in love with, let's say, your master, what are you going to do? What are you going to do in heaven? Is that true love? If the master, the slave master, let's say he's a nice guy, and he bought this girl, like 10 years ago at the slave market, and she's grown up now in the house, and they're in love, and now he dies and she dies, and then what? She's going to go to heaven as a slave girl, or do slave girls no longer exist as slave girls but as normal human beings? And then if she goes up there, is she going to see her master, or is the master going to only have eyes for the other virgins for all eternity? I don't understand how these things really work. It's as
Yeah.
Rob says, we don't have the information.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's the 72 virgins, but then, are you going to end up with your, like, even the spouse, for example, like, or your lover, or, someone you were supposed to be soulmates with, right? So it doesn't make any sense, because true love doesn't end at death. If Allah wills it, it will continue in Jannah. So Allah can make an exception for you, weirdly enough.
What's the plan?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I'm sure they can infer something from the Quran. Hey, read some obscure verse and say it means this or that.
Yeah. So again, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, the Quran doesn't say all that much. It's mostly the Hadith which give you more information, and as to size and age and looks and who is with whom and blah blah blah. The juicy bits are reserved for the Hadith, not for the Quran.
Yeah, and the sight of heaven with like bearded mullahs screwing around with virgins. I don't want to be in that heaven. I'd rather go to hell. I don't want to see that disgusting sight.
Yeah, that's where the interesting girls go, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a look at the news side, because I've got two news items. One is a really, really interesting one, because Abdullah Gondal has done it again. I mean, he always comes up with these ideas. Remember that the concise and Reader's Digest Quran is actually his brainchild, because he started this. I'm just taking it further now. I don't know how far I'm going to be able to go. I don't know. I'd love to have the entire Quran in a short version like this, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. But he's now come up with a new thing, and that is, he calls it the Flipped Quran series. So he says, to demonstrate how dangerous Islam is, I will be uploading a series of flipped Quran verses with the pronouns exchanged from unbeliever to Muslim. So, I don't know, I think for me it's very clear. I don't know, do I need to explain this?
So I think it's more, showing it from the perspective of the disbeliever. Now, how does it sound to the believer now? Like, let's reverse the situation and see. Sorry about that. Yeah, so let's reverse the situation and see, how people feel about this. Does it sound nice to you? So think about what you're doing from the other way.
Well, the thing is, what he's doing, he's just taking normal sentences from the Quran, but then every time it says unbelievers or non-believers, will not the unbelievers realize, and blah blah blah, and he instead replaces this word with Muslim. Will not the Muslims see? And to see how much hatred there actually is in the Quran. If you go and now address Muslims with it, I think Muslims will be able to see a lot easier what kind of hatred we're talking about.
And even the Urdu free thinker, I highly recommend going to his channel. He did an entire video with how much Quran has a disdain for unbelievers or disbelievers. So he did all like the verses. He showed the verses that show so much hatred for them. And so if you replace them with Muslims or believers, then yes, that definitely it's genius. I highly say this is genius.
Yeah, because it actually demonstrates it and makes it very easy to see. So I think this is excellent, really good.
Yeah, there will still be the backlash that, oh, you are not understanding it out of context, or, you'll also get the response that, no, we are correct. This narcissistic response that we are correct and you are wrong.
Exactly. Yeah, but then if you put Muslim in there, so then it's up to the Muslim to create the context or to look at the context or understand it or see it or whatever. But I think it makes it painfully clear how bad the situation is. So. Okay, then the second item that I have is one of sheer hypocrisy, I think, because, okay, on the one hand, we have in football Manchester United's player or star, Paul Pogba, who runs around and waves a Palestine flag at a football match. Now, this is a big no-no, but nothing really happens. So people are looking at this and saying, yeah, okay, all right, fine, yeah, so what? So he's making a statement for something called Palestine, which is a highly contentious issue at the moment, which is totally unresolved, and there's a lot of violence and a lot of emotions involved here. And to now take a stand and for a football player to run around on live TV with a Palestine flag, I think is totally inappropriate. Because he's a sports guy. He's not a political combatant or a politician or something. So I think people should not I mean, if somebody asks him for his opinion, sure, then go ahead and tell people your opinion. But to make this into a demonstration, a marketing exercise or something on national television, I think that's not right. But then, on the other hand, another Muslim, it says here, bottles of Heineken were noticeably missing from fellow French Muslim footballer Karim Benzema at his press conference. Because, and now this is crazy, team managers and players will now have the choice of whether to remove the bottles on religious grounds, according to the Telegraph. Now another player, Pogba, he snubbed the drink, which was a non-alcoholic version of the Dutch lager. So they're already accommodating religion in sports. I mean, I don't understand what religion has to do in sports. And now they're saying, well, no, Heineken needs to go. Like the same guy, there was another player who took down the Coca-Cola bottles because he says it's sugar water.
So Cristiano Ronaldo, yes. Ronaldo did that, yes. I think he did that for health reasons, I think.
And, okay, you see, this is a different issue. I think sports and sugar doesn't really go, does it? And neither does alcohol, for that matter. But if you are a sponsor, so if the organization allows a beverage producer who produces alcoholic beverages as one of the big sponsors, then you need to be aware that the name of this sport is going to be associated with the producer of alcoholic beverages. You know, you can't, on the one hand, this is why I call this hypocrisy, because on the one hand, they allow the guy to run with a Palestine flag, and then they say Heineken, who is a sponsor, who's like a major sponsor, is not allowed to place their products there, which is what they are paying for, just because the guy is a Muslim. So this is, I don't know, this is somehow weird that on the one hand like this, on the other hand like that. Just because it's and it's the non-alcoholic version of this beer. So I think this is
also, it's
crazy.
not even, wait, hang on. So it's not even the alcoholic version of the beer. It's the non-alcoholic version.
Yes, it's the non-alcoholic version of the beer.
Yeah, that's a bit too much accommodation, but, that's... Because, the accommodation should have been for just alcoholic, if the drink is alcoholic, but non-alcoholic, that there should be some leeway to that,
But even if it's alcoholic, like I said, if you allow as a sponsor somebody, I mean, it's the same thing as you used to have in Formula One. You used to have cigarettes. The manufacturers of cigarettes were the main sponsors. I mean, come on, McLaren and Marlboro was a or Camel and blah blah blah. There was JPS was the name of the car, John Player Special. So for many years it was cigarettes and Formula One. They were like linked, like conjoined twins. And then we became more aware of the dangers of smoking, and eventually this was banned. So now you don't see any more cigarettes on cars. And I think this is a good way of promoting a sport by saying, okay, sports are supposed to be healthy, so let's get rid of the cigarettes, and we should also get rid of the alcohol, because neither cigarettes nor alcohol, I think, are good for the body. So, but I think it's hypocrisy that on the one hand you're allowing somebody to make a statement running around with the Palestine flag, and then on the other hand you're saying, well, no, you're not allowed to have even non-alcoholic versions of an alcoholic or beer or something in front of you. That's it. Okay, I don't understand it. Rob, what do you say? Oh, he stepped away. Okay, then.
Sorry, I had it muted. I was speaking there. Yeah, I think pandering to religious sensibility is not a good idea. Now, if you want to do it because alcohol, as you pointed out, or excessive alcohol at least, is not good for one, that's one thing. But if it's non-alcoholic and you have a sponsor and you've agreed to this, then the players unfortunately don't have the opportunity to just do as they wish. Because all that's going to happen is the sponsor's not going to pay up. If I was that sponsor and we'd agreed this and that was going to be in the shot and the players moved it, I'm going to say, well, I'm not paying for that, or I'm going to ask for a rebate, and I'm going to be very cautious if I'm going to be a sponsor again in the future. So all of those things, I think, need to be worked out. And I think Cristiano Ronaldo was the first person to do this and said drink water, but he's doing it on health grounds, which I think we can all agree with. But just because you're doing it because the book says so, and if you do it because the book says so, but then you point to health grounds, well, now you're using evidence like the rest of us, and we can ignore the book. So either you point to the book and you take it on faith, and I like that a definition I heard from Anthony Magnaboska the other day. So faith is untestable trust. So that's an interesting definition of faith, right? Untestable trust. Because I take the word trust to be something that we all do, right? Based on, prior background information and inductive reasoning. But faith is untestable trust. And so if you're going to do it for that reason, well, then you can't point to anything in the world to back up your claim. It's one or the other. If you do the real world, then you can throw away the book. If you take the book, then you can't use the real world, and then you're taking it on faith.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's time that we do away with Coca-Cola, because this, it doesn't promote health in any which way. And saying now Coca-Cola Light and Coca-Cola Zero and things like that, well, I don't know. Thinking Clear, Gin and Tonic Show. None of these words have taken a stand against Qatar building their stadiums for the next World Cup with slave labor. Token justice from them. Yeah, correct. There's a lot of things that can be useful, or where sports can be used to better life or to better the situation on the planet. Absolutely.
I think a professional wrestler, Mustafa Ali, also pointed out that they would be only accommodating, or sports would only take a stand if it's profitable, unfortunately. And he was kind of right. It was, I don't remember the exact statement, but it was like Rob said, it was pandering, selective pandering, So yeah, he did state that it's only for if it's profitable for the promotion, then they would go with it. But then on the other hand, it's weird. It's all like it's a bit hypocritical.
Exactly. Well, this is why I started calling it hypocritical. That's exactly. It's a good point that you're making there. Exactly, that's what we are. It's so silly. All right, shall we move on to the next segment?
Yep.
Yes.
Which is. Okay. I love this. All right, what are we going to be looking at is a couple of comments. This one is from Rob, and thank God that Mustafa is here today. So, Mustafa, you can do your two, and then Rob can do the last one.
All right. So can you make this a little bigger?
What I need to do is I need to remove this.
Mm-hmm.
And now,
There we go.
but I can't move it.
Yeah, that's okay. That's fine. Yeah, you can.
No, it's not, because it's missing the top one.
Oh, right there we. Okay, I can somewhat.
Hang on, I can
No,
do it
no.
like this.
Hang on. Yeah.
And we just got to get rid of the what's the name?
The logo.
This one also needs to go. Okay.
Yeah.
We both do.
Okay.
Okay.
And then they say, "Ha ha ha! Run, run! If you're unable to defend your subjective morality, run, run! Well done, VR."
Mustafa, is this a reaction to a comment by you?
No, stops. I sent you this.
No,
This
no.
is from a video on
okay.
on SC Dawa.
Okay, sorry. I'm not used to you doing this in white.
All right. Well done. He probably meant to say doctor, but VR Hashim,
Brother.
brother Hashim. Oh, that's a God. I was gonna say Bokta for a second there. One of the best debater. Please keep debating Christians and atheists and destroy their false doctrine 3 in 1, as well as the universe popped out of nowhere. Last one.
This is terrible.
And then there's Arthur King, not King Arthur. This is Arthur King. Muslim are more logical.
Obviously.
Anwar
Don't fancy
Khan.
that's definitely not from my anecdotal experience.
Yeah. Oh, this one's good. MashaAllah, brother Hashim or brother Hashim. And then JL forever. I can read this. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah.
That's a standard comment, as though this makes some sort of impact.
Yeah. And then Rob, did you want to read this?
Which one? No, you read them. That's fine.
Okay. And American Underground. I didn't get to read the whole conversation, but I'm sure he was not that educated. When you go against a mind in a debate with Hashim, you better bring your A game. Seriously, guy is a marvel, but we haven't spoken yet. So hopefully one day we will. Love your work, friend. American Underground.
So easy.
sounds very
So
polite.
easy to baffle. It's so easy to baffle the gullible, isn't it? Huh?
Yeah. And then Abbas Abdullah, brother Hashim smashed them from Trinity Slayer to Atheist Slayer.
And quite honestly, this Hashim guy is really one of the weakest. I mean, he's just, he talks a long time but doesn't say anything. And there's nothing really there. And I don't know how people react like this, really. I have no clue what brings them to make comments like this. Really, I have no
Well,
idea.
we did Stops and I did a review on my channel. So go look at Speakers Corner UK. We did it last week, and with James SC, who called into the Muslim stream, and Hashim was on there along with Darren Hamza and Ijaz and the Sheikh Farouk and Yusuf Ponders. And I mean, you listen to, because here's the thing, you listen to the responses given, and that tells you whether somebody's tracking what's being said and whether they can actually respond to it. And they all say the same thing, right? They just, because this was about free will and omniscience, and they just say, oh, well, if God knows everything, he's not forcing you to do something. This is the line that they just repeat. Doesn't matter what evidence you show, doesn't matter how you explain that doesn't work, etc. It's just a repetition, as if they're saying something. And Hashim was a great example of doing just that, just saying this over and over as if this was somehow a rebuttal.
But I must say, the names that they come up with are actually quite creative. Like Vladimir Al-Putin, that's excellent.
Yeah, I love this name, Vladimir Al-Putin. It's like the letter P does not exist in the Arabic language, so that's why the Putin comes in. So here it is. Vladimir Al-Putin. Most of atheists are arrogant. They feel they are intelligent than who believe in God.
What?
And
they feel they are more intelligent than those who believe in God. Oh, okay.
yeah, so but he just missed out the word more. All right, Abdu Ugas. What are these names? Hashim's arguments are simple but powerful.
No, they're just simple.
They're just simple, exactly. All right. Finally, a normal name, Tarek. Okay, finally a normal name. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "A Muslim is a brother of another Muslim, so he should not oppress him, nor should he hand him over to his Satan or to his self, which is inclined to evil. Whoever fulfills the needs of his brother, Allah will fulfill his needs. Whoever removes the troubles of his brother, Allah will remove one of his troubles on the day of resurrection. And whoever comes up the fault of Allah, fault of a Muslim, Allah will cover up." And there's more actually, because it says read more.
Yeah, we don't have that, unfortunately.
That's okay. And then one religion. Hashim is a lion.
I think what
these
guys mean by a lion is a kitten, right? Somebody that meows and looks at themselves, or others look at them the way they think they're seeing themselves as a lion, but it's really just like a little meow rather than a roar of any sort, if we're going to use that analogy.
Yeah.
Hamza, what's his name? Redbeard. He loves referring to himself as a lion.
Yeah, it's weird that they all refer to themselves as lions. Like even Muhammad Hijab, this person, and now like there's already 3: Hamza, Redbeard, and yeah. Now the Riza Dahman, there is no Christian will win debate with Hasim. All right. Not. Wolverine Scratch. Okay, I kind of like this name, Wolverine Scratch. If he had a solid argument, he would have debated, but he ran. It's probably the way he lives his life. When challenged, run. May Allah keep us steadfast, inshallah. Weird. Oh, weird, these comments. Oh, there's more. Oh, yes, this is the story I wanted to tell. So I post a video about.
Is this the beginning?
No, the bottom, I think, posted has been removed for violating community guidelines. Yes. So this is the entire story. And then the image I post is regarding the Israel-Palestine issue. So this is how it starts. So 14th of June, it's been removed. And then I appealed the video. Thanks for your appeal. We appreciate your patience and contributions. So I think before this, I also posted 25 reasons I don't believe in Islam as well. So if we go up, and then a video you posted on the 18th of June, I posted another one regarding the Palestine. Like I kind of said that, you know, these both parties are fighting. It's a comedy. It's comedy, right? So it's like.
Okay. All right.
It's comedy.
Yeah, so it's 2 separate issues, 2 separate incidents.
Yeah. So 2 separate incidents where now this one is a comedy which states that, you know, what the Israel-Palestine issue is. And
but
you
is
know,
this the cartoon? Is
Yes,
this the cartoon where the Jew and the Muslim both say, "We want the Dome of the Rock"?
Yes, so both of them are fighting over the Dome of the Rock. One says, Yahweh gave it to me. The other says, Allah gave it to me. And they're pulling. And then there are people dying. So it's like the satirical cartoon. So it says here, a video you posted on the 18th of June has been removed for violating our community guidelines. So I appealed this. And days later, thanks for your appeal. 2 days later, thanks for your appeal, I reviewed your video and has restored it. We appreciate your patience. So now once a video is reposted, there's more comments. And then system notification. The next day, I don't post anything. I don't even bother posting anything because I'm, you know, busy studying. And then I'm kind of like a little fatigued as well. I'm trying to sleep. And then I wake up the next morning and then see this. Due to multiple violations of our community guidelines, you're temporarily blocked from posting until 28th of June. Hang on. How many community guidelines? Like I appealed both of them. They both got restored, but they still block me because I violated the community guidelines.
Oh boy. This is like YouTube. This is like Facebook. Yeah. It's the same chaotic sort of thing.
And TikTok, and this is you have all these like, you know, Allah inspirational and, you know, all these floating around with a little criticism, and it's like, and then you have little girls, underage girls dancing, but you can't let me talk about social issues and religious issues. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, it is, eh?
Yeah. So yeah, that was a ridiculous story. So if you ever go to TikTok, their guidelines are a bit. Do not use the word date on TikTok. I learned that. Do not use the word date. You can use the word sex, but you can't use the word date. I don't know why.
Yeah, you have these funny words on YouTube as well. Remember, sometimes I notice because I'm watching two different streams, and I can see somebody making a comment here on StreamYard, and I see the comment go through, but it doesn't appear on YouTube. So obviously, it contains some sort of catchword, which triggers automatic deletion.
Yeah, I think it's the bots that they're kind of out of control at this point, and then they've put certain words but forgot to put other words in. It's very inconsistent.
Yeah, that's terrible. Okay, all right. This is a oh my god.
Oh my goodness!
How am I going to do this one?
All right.
That's 2 long stops, I think, isn't it? Goodness, it looks like a whole essay there.
All right, I'll try to make it as short and dramatic as possible. And all right, today scientists have found evidence that the words of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, what the hell is that? Is scientifically correct, which is said 1400 years ago. Muhammad said, "Man's pants or clothes must fall on the ankles, otherwise they will go to hell." Science says if you wear pants beyond your ankles, it is most likely to get dirty, and one can also get disease from dirty clothes. And you can fall during running with long pants and harm yourself. But then
how can you read this without laughing?
Yeah, it's like, wait, that's who comes up with this stuff?
Oh goodness.
All right, next one from Sahih al-Bukhari. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Allah's curse is the one who plucks the eyebrows." Science says eyebrows give protection to the eyes. There are no hairs on the eyebrows. Sweats can go into your eye and may harm your eyesight.
Yeah, all these naughty sweats.
Yeah, so it's like he curses you, but why? Like, let you harm yourself. Like, it's so stupid. The Prophet said it is haram to take intoxicants. Science says that smoking kills with lung cancer, bronchitis, and heart disease. If you smoke, it decreases one's sexual energy, appetite, and even memory. Okay, it's correct, but Allah did not say smoking. And the Prophet ﷺ said,
hang on, let me just go a little bit down. There you go.
When sleeping, turn off the light and lie on your right side. Sahih al-Bukhari and Tirmidhi. Science says that you sleep on your right side, your heart pumps well. And if you sleep without turning off the lights, your body secretes less hormones during sleep, which is harmful for your both body and mind. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Trim closely your mustache and let your beard grow." Sahih Muslim. Science says that without a beard, there is a risk of skin cancer and lung infection. What? Where is he getting this from? All right. Allah says, "Do not approach adultery, since it is indecency and evil way." Surah Bani Israel. The deeds of intoxicated are handiwork of Satan. Surah Maida 90. Science.
By the way, that's not what the Quran says. No,
really? Wow. Yeah, that's so. It's even tampered with as well. Yeah. Science says that if a person becomes addicted to various drugs, including pornography is not a drug. Pornography is not a drug, guys. Images and videos. Then the brain cells get intoxicated and become unstable and die. As a result, a person who became intoxicated will lead a life of drunkenness and sickness, and it pushes one towards destruction. Allah says.
Hang on, let me just get the bottom one. See, okay, there you go.
When the Quran is recited, then listen to it and be silent. That mercy be shown to you. Surah Araf 204. Science says that the sound wave of the Quran calm your mind and activates the brain cells, curing diseases, especially heart and cancer patients. And it charges the brain in the same way that a fused battery is activated.
Oh, isn't science wonderful?
How did these claims come to be? And are these even peer-reviewed claims?
Yeah, wait, it gets better. Our review is going to be a video with claims as well.
Oh my goodness. Malaysia wants to punish those promoting an LGBT under Sharia law. Oh yes, my Malaysian friend was telling me about this. They're also ex-Muslim, and they showed me this. So a government task force in Malaysia has tabled terrifying amendments to Sharia law that would stop people from promoting the LGBTQ lifestyle on social media. They missed the Q plus. They missed the Q plus.
Okay, what does it mean, promoting the LGBT lifestyle? What does that mean? Does it, if I'm gay and I say, yeah, gay is gay, gay is wonderful, Allah is gay or something, what does that mean? Then I need to be killed if I say gay is good?
Yeah, apparently you need to be killed. Like if you say something like, if you share an LGBTQ couple, a lesbian couple, for example, kissing, or bloggers, you can be killed. If you follow a gay, we call it athlete or something like that, and you share his content, you could be killed because they're promoting the lifestyle. Anything. If you say to another man, one man to another, I want to kiss you, that's promoting the lifestyle. So it's very broad.
Oh, goodness. I mean, isn't life complicated enough? Why do you want to go into these things? Why? Who are you harming? Who is the victim if you fall in love with another man or a girl falls in love with another girl? Who cares?
Yeah, and
you don't have to. I used to be homophobic because really I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know what. And then after a while, I realized, you're being petty, you're being silly because you're not being harmed. I'm not being harmed. If other people want to be gay, well, more girls for me. So who cares?
Exactly.
And then I stopped. And then after a while, I realized that I was being stupid. And then I just sort of, I came over it, or I don't know, whatever. So I don't know. If there's no victim, if somebody else wants to do that, well, who cares?
Yeah, so
they
will claim that it's ruining society in the eyes of Allah, and Allah it's gonna bring destruction to society, and that nonsense that my holy book says, so that's why they're gonna discriminate against the LGBT community. And in Malaysia is relatively a secular country, but there's a lot of Muslims that live there, and they want to push for this rule.
Yeah. It was more secular. I mean, when I was there, it was okay. But my brother later on told me, no, it's changed.
It's changed. A lot of it has changed. Yeah, it's changed a lot, and it's actually becoming more and more of a regressive society slowly. And I'm in touch with some Malaysian ex-Muslims, and they also have to hide the fact that they're ex-Muslims. Because it's not safe for them to be open in Malaysia, or openly, critical of Islam in Malaysia.
No, it's terrible. Okay, all right. Should we go to the next segment?
Yep.
Well,
it's puzzling. It's puzzling. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this before.
So what we're talking about is, of course, our favorite literature at the moment, which is the Quran. The holy, wonderful Quran. Okay, we're in chapter 11. We've actually made a lot, eh? I mean, I remember when we started off doing this thing in writing, we were on chapter 4 or something. No, chapter 2. And then we said, no, this is taking too long if we go through it sentence by sentence. Then we started going through like 10, 20 sentences. And then I started doing this here when, again, Abdullah Gondorf came up with this idea of the condensed version. And it's actually a lot. So we're in chapter 11. We've actually passed the halfway mark, I think. And it's sentence number 17. Now, I didn't understand this. So what I did is I took the corpus and I took Sahih International just to show that it's the people who are translating this are also not quite sure what this is about. And then I'm going to show the original. So the corpus is, then is he who is on a clear proof from his Lord and recites it a witness from him, and before it a book, Musa, a guide and mercy. Now, does anybody understand anything that I have just read?
And the way it's structured, it's very weird. Book, guide to mercy, but I'm guessing it's referring to the Torah.
Okay, listen, but initially you think, what the hell is he talking about? And then it says, those believe in it. I don't know what that means. But whoever disbelieves in it among the sects, then the fire his promised place. So, not be in doubt about it. Indeed, it the truth from your Lord, but most the people not believe. Now, Sahih International adds something like this is also the structure, and I said here in the back here, this sounds like Jar Jar Binks. I don't know if you know Star Wars and
yes,
the crazy Jamaican guy.
The alien, yes.
So is one who, upon the clear evidence from his Lord, what the hell is this? Okay, this is the original. This is what I find there as a translation. Is he who possesses a clear proof from his Lord, recited by a witness from him, and before it the book of Moses, a guide and a mercy. So this is already the interpretation, what Mustafa just said, the book of Moses. But the way that it is interpreted, it also doesn't make sense. These believe in it, but whoever defies it from among the various factions, the fire is his promise. Okay, so have no doubt about it. It is the truth from your Lord, but most people do not believe.
So basically, it's saying that, if you believe, if there's whoever defies or denies the book of Moses from amongst the various factions within Bani Israel, or within the Jews, the fire is his promise. So if you don't believe in the Torah, then you have no doubt about it. It is the truth from your Lord, but most people do not believe. So it's sort of like an open-ended threat, like most people don't believe, but if you don't believe in this, the fire is your promise, in the hereafter.
But what do you need to believe? Do you need to believe that the book of Moses is correct and valid?
Apparently it's clear proof from his Lord.
That's how I understand it, but then it doesn't make sense. Then this is a clear contradiction in what it says in other parts of the Quran.
Yeah, because apparently you're supposed to say that the Torah is a clear book from, the Lord. So that's kind of promoting the Torah, if it's talking about the Torah, that is.
Because it doesn't mention any corruption by the Jews.
Yeah, apparently then later it says that there's a corruption, but we'll get to that. So yeah, it's a promotion for the Torah. Congratulations to the Jewish community.
Because it's actually whoever defies it goes to hell. So
what about
this is very strong. I mean, this is really, really strong. You have to go and abide by the rules of the Jews, and if you don't, you're going to burn.
Yeah, that's what it says.
So the guy who wrote this section was really a believer in the Jewish sort of premises.
That's
okay. But do you understand that when you read this, when I read this in the beginning, I thought, what the hell are they talking about? Because all I saw here is that you need to believe the book of Moses. And I thought, no, that can't be. You must be reading it wrong. But this is what it actually says. It's a guide and a mercy that is contained in the book of Moses.
Yeah.
Normally it's 5 books, but yeah, we don't know. The book of Moses, everybody assumes that everybody knows what the book of Moses is. And it's the books of Moses, by the way. But
no, it's not just one book, but then it's assumed that it's one book of the Torah, right? But it's actually 5 different books combined into one. And yeah, even those books, they have like they have evidence of multiple authors. Like there's an entire study about it. Like the Elohist and the D author. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. You should attend a Hebrew Bible course in Yale University. That's the way they posted it on YouTube. It's amazing. I highly recommend checking it out. The Hebrew Bible series by Yale University. So
okay, super. Because the funny thing is, they always say, "Yeah, but we have the scrolls and we have the original, well, almost originals, and nothing has been changed." Yeah, but what does that show you? It doesn't show you anything. It just shows you that there have been little changes in a time span of maybe 300 years. If the contents originally was wrong or bad or just fabricated, then the fabricated text has not been changed. So I don't know what the point is of saying this. Okay, then so in other words, it's believe or burn. So this is my summary now of this whole long thing is you possess it. You need to believe or burn. And sentence 18 is God will curse those who lie about him. Now, what does it mean? A God will curse you? Is the God outside of the universe going to sit there? Ooh, I'm going to curse this stuff spamming. He's a real asshole. I curse you. Now, how many curses does it take for me to feel this, or what is the consequence of 15 curses or 1,000 curses? What do I feel?
Oh, you don't feel anything. You just have the punishment of Allah. You will never know, but you will have the punishment in the hereafter in hellfire. That's the curse. So the curse is basically there's blessings and then there's curses. So if God curses you, then you are doomed to hell.
So how many? I've asked this question so many times. What do 5 blessings give me?
Oh, just like heaven, I guess. That's it. That's all it is.
So how many blessings get before you go to heaven?
I think he'll have to balance a scale, like how many times he's cursed you and how many times he's blessed you, and then just measure it up. If the blessings outweigh the curses, you kind of get a small portion of the Jannah, and that's why you get it. It proportions the virgins, the gender, the milk, and the honey, and the wine as well. So you get those proportions.
And I don't know whether to think who makes this shit up, or whether to think who the hell believes this. God will curse those who lie about him. Who lie about him. How can you lie? Can you lie about Cinderella? Well, Cinderella is said to be a pretty girl. Okay, so if I say, no, Cinderella was ugly. Okay, have I lied about her? No, I haven't, because I just said something that is not correct. But lying is to say something that you know is incorrect in order to deceive somebody.
I think this is also an indirect jab at Christians too, because of the Trinity. So this could be an indirect jab, because there's a lot of indirect jab.
Okay, that's an interesting point. Yeah.
So they associate the Son with the Lord, right? So the Son and the Lord. So this is sort of like an indirect, sort of, because we want you to be strictly monotheist, no Holy Spirit, no Son, just one God.
So if you say God has a son, then you're going to get cursed.
Basically.
Which doesn't do anything for you. It doesn't, there's no, or maybe it's like a bank account of curses and blesses. Yeah. Okay, sentence number 19 in chapter 11 of the Holy Quran. Those are in denial who falsify Islam or the hereafter and prevent someone from joining. Now, I don't know, I didn't explain this today. What I do is I take the original sentences of, like sentence 19 in chapter 11 of the Quran, and then I reduce it down to the essence of what the sentence is all about. So I leave out all the fluff and all the, and Allah knows best and things like that. Those I leave out. So I'm just taking the sentence in itself. So if you go to the Quran now and look at 19 and you expect to see exactly this, no, this is not how it works. This is my interpretation, my personal subjective interpretation of what I think the Quran says. This is how I understand the Quran. So if this God wrote it for me,
Well, this is what he wrote. This is how I understand it. So if I was created by this God, then this God created me to understand this sentence in this way. So you can't blame me for that, can you? So those are in denial who falsify Islam. So if I falsify Islam, how would you falsify Islam? If you say Islam is peace, then you are falsifying Islam, aren't you?
But also, you can, if you make some changes to Islam, you're also, you're preventing someone from joining the hereafter, like the prince is doing, no?
And prevent some, yeah. And then if somebody, well, this is exactly what I'm trying to do. This is why I'm saying I help people by, and I just made this into a video where I say, well, I am guilty of intervening when a sleazy used car salesman is trying to sell you a lemon.
Yeah.
And then I tell the prospective buyer, well, listen, I would take care, I would have it checked because there's a couple of things that I don't agree with. And then, of course, the salesman is going to curse me because he's just lost out on a sale.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
That's what it is. Like what we're doing is deconstructing Islam. And, here it's sort of like a curse, like hereafter, you're preventing someone from joining the hereafter. So it's kind of like, it's putting the non-believer in, like, painting them as the denial that we know that Allah is true, but we deny his glory, kind of very toxic idea that, we know, but we deny it kind of deal. So it's kind of stereotyping us that way, when in reality, that's not the case at all.
Okay, I think what we're going to do is we're going to leave it here because the next 10 sentences are going to be more intense. So I suggest we leave this and... oops, no, this is the opposite. Oh, goodness. This is what I wanted. There you go. Stop sharing. And then what we're going to do is we're going to continue with the Quran next week because it's going to take too long to go through the next one. Is that okay?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Rob, are you going to do the video?
Yeah, there we go. Hopefully that's coming up for you.
So the next segment is where we go and we look at the theme for today, is looking at a video which I called Quran and Science with a Sheikh, because the One Message Foundation is owned by a sheikh who has a master in, what is it, in Cinderella? No, in Hadith. In Hadith, he's got a master in Hadith. Well, it's the same thing. And he doesn't get tired of telling us this, and he is now going to tell us about the interesting study of what he finds fascinating in the Quran.
That's something that I call the ghost expert fallacy. Right? If you have expertise, let's say you have expertise in Hadith, it's a bit like having expertise in Greek mythology, but whatever, nothing particularly substantial. But let's say you have expertise in that. Somehow then people, and that sometimes in this case, this particular person, then thinks they have expertise to talk on other subjects which they are woefully unequipped to talk about. And so it's like a ghost, it's like having this ghost idea of being an expert in other fields. If you happen to be in one field, then people automatically think that you have expertise because you have it in that one field. They just extrapolate, well, he must know what he's talking about in these other areas. And as we'll see, that's clearly not the case. So if you guys are ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Stops you all good there, then we can start here. He might have stepped away. I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I'm talking and talking and commenting and saying, and I didn't even realize that I'm blocked, that I'm muted.
You're muted there. Okay. All righty. Here we go.
So today, in front of you, I want you to put the Quran to the test using a scientific method. Using the scientific method, you have to have a hypothesis. My hypothesis that I'm going to put in front of you today is the Quran is a divine source.
It might be going a little bit fast. Let's make it 1.25. Okay, so the Quran is a divine source. So before we go there, let's between us just see if we can have a benchmark here. What would it take for you guys to accept that the Quran is a divine source? What sort of evidence would you be looking for that to be the case, even in principle?
In principle, knowledge of the entire universe and beyond, like knowledge that nobody has, that nobody even today can understand, for example. So something extraordinary, right? So I have like very extraordinary expectations of this.
Yeah, that's
Well, for me, it's
good way of doing it.
the complete contents of the Quran in my head in the language that I understand, updated daily.
Yeah, and I think for me, in the context of this thing, as you say, we can easily see how the Quran could be so much better in virtually every possible way. But even if we were left with this sort of Medicare book, I'd be looking for precision in terms of time, date, details, in terms of, these quote unquote prophecies all being super accurate and all of them being the case, because if you get some of them right, some of them wrong, that's no better than chance. So you could always guess some of them. And if you make, vague statements, then they can be interpreted in any which way. So you don't want any vaguity. You want precision, and you want it to be, the case every single time. And especially if it's going to be, come from the supernatural, then it's something that humans couldn't possibly, in principle, do, either at that time, ideally, or any other time for that matter. And so let's see whether we get that.
It could not. It possibly have been written by a man named Muhammad or anybody around him in the time period where it was revealed to him. At that time, in the Arabian desert, a man who was illiterate, and even if he could read, he didn't have the libraries of the Greeks or the Romans or any of that kind of research in front of him to be able to read. Nobody.
What the hell is he talking about? First he says, well, this is an illiterate man, and even if he could read, he didn't have a library. So what are you telling us? Right from the word go, you're telling me that you have no idea what you're talking about. You're making claims, and at the same time, you're saying, well, maybe it's not the case, maybe it's something else. So there is no confidence in anything that you are saying right now, because you yourself are pulling the rug out from underneath what you are saying. So there is nothing left there. We can stop right here, because I don't know what the hell you are talking about if you are so unsure of what you are saying, if you are saying things like that. This is ridiculous.
And even in the standard, sorry, Robs, even in the standard narrative, Muhammad is putting his seal, he's signing documents, he is reading out things, he's reading out treaties, he is doing, deals, like he's going all the way to Syria on behalf of Khadija and back and doing business deals. You have to be somewhat educated to do that if you're a businessman. And you have to be able to write and, make sure of, purchases.
Bookkeeping, yeah.
You have to do bookkeeping, exactly. So you have to, and merchandising, you need to know how to count. So you need to write all this stuff down.
But even if you couldn't do it yourself, you'd have maybe, the primitive version of accountants or bookkeepers or whatever the case is. And obviously you could communicate, and this could have been written. So there isn't, and of course they came across, trades, people that were trading goods and so forth from that area, as far away as Egypt and, all around that area. So what the idea that he wants to put forward is here, this guy was kind of, on his own, was pretty clueless, and how could he have known this? They want to make it as if he got virtually no information and was utterly clueless and, illiterate, because that makes the miracle sound better. But even if that were the case, let's just see how impressive these miracles are. Now he's going to quote, Stops, maybe you can do it and have the Quranics available there, because I'm obviously sharing screen. But he's actually going to quote Quranic verses. And I think it'd be very instructive if we read these verses as well and see whether we come to even remotely the same conclusion as what he's going to come to here. Because he's either going to take, a translation that suits him, or he's going to do it out of his head. And when a Muslim does this, and especially if they're making claims like this, you've got to check it. Don't take it for granted, because it's very likely that they're either not remembering it or they're putting in their own words there, which is not part of, either the corpus or any other normal translation.
Oh, sorry. Oh, now
Let's put it to the test
there you go.
today in front of us. If we can test this theory against available facts, available information that we have scientifically today, and if we can prove it that repeatedly it would come true, then we have to agree that this is a fact, that this book is of divine origins.
No.
So we look at...
Sorry, this is absolute bullshit. If you write a book and then you find that the book is correct, all that you are finding is that the book is correct. Not every book that is correct is automatically of divine origin. That is absolute nonsense.
I think what he's trying to claim, and he kind of said it earlier, but it's not all in one sort of sentence, is that if it wasn't something that because he used a word, right, which is a big claim, that it's impossible for humans to know, and presumably he means at that time, and then you have this book that gets all of this with such accurate, stunning precision, and no human could have known it, then it is the case that we have to ask, well, how did this come about? It doesn't automatically mean that it comes from a supernatural, because it could have been given to you by aliens who are far more intelligent. So we do have other options. So you're absolutely right. It doesn't entail that it comes from that. But if it were the case somehow that you could establish it was impossible for humans to know, and you had this precision and accuracy, then we would be left with the question, how did this information come about at that time where you had ignorant humans on this idea? And then we could look at different options. And the question for a Muslim, or indeed anybody else, is how did you establish that it's more likely that some supernatural entity did it than it's aliens who actually have the technology and ability to know these things and are playing with humans to see how gullible they'll be? How did you establish one is more likely than the other? Because anything you say, I will say, well, aliens could do that too. So what is it that would rule out aliens or push it in the direction of some sort of supernatural entity? That's the question that a Muslim would need to answer, at least for me.
And the thing is, if somebody claims here, Uthman will destroy this whole panel, please set it up. Please, let him destroy us. Please, I beg of you. Please let him destroy us. But he's too much.
Yeah, he's welcome to come on here. Right, but him with four other Muslims on the Muslim safe space is not going to work. If he's such a amazing guy, then he can come on here, and we'll do it here live on the Gin and Tonic Show any Friday that he's available. And we'll make a special show just for him to come and make his claims, and we'll see under critique whether his claims stand up.
Scientific research in astronomy. What is the origin of the universe, the galaxy, the planets? Today,
okay, so we've got to be careful here as well. Right, this is it's a bit of what's called to a degree a gish gallop. What's the origin of the universe? The stars, the planets, right? These all have different answers. So when you string a whole lot of ideas together, you get a gish gallop. It's named after a famous Christian apologist who would throw in as many possible claims in the shortest amount of time to make it very difficult, if not impossible, for his interlocutor to respond to them all. And then at the end he would say, and I made all these claims and my interlocutor didn't respond to them, because you made so many in a shotgun effect, machine gun type effect, that there wasn't time for the interlocutor. Because as we're seeing now, for us to unpack and to rebut or refute these claims takes a lot longer than it does for you to make the claim, because you're not actually providing much evidence. You're making a claim and you're pointing to something. Now we have to come and rebut it, and it takes twice or three times as long to rebut than it does to make the claim.
Yeah, and you said it's a gish gallop, right?
Yeah, G-I-S-H, gish.
Gish, okay.
Accepted theory today is called the nebular hypothesis.
Okay, so now what is he actually referring to? Remember he said the universe, stars, planets, etc. Right, so the nebular hypothesis is with regards to a solar system, right? Or a star, for example. He's not making that clear.
And according to this, the sun and the planets in our solar system began as a giant cloud of smoke. And then it came together as bodies, for example, planets and solar systems and galaxies. This theory was proposed by Emanuel Swedenborg, and then Immanuel Kant in 1755, he published this. 1,100 years, 1,100 years.
Let's just go back a moment. He did use the word smoke, didn't he?
Yes.
You guys heard that, right?
Yes, he used the word smoke.
Okay, I'm going to read you now before he goes into this, right? That's why I say with apologies, you've got to be very careful. Nowhere does it say it's smoke. I'm going to read you just a couple of paragraphs here on this. Our solar system formed at the same time as the sun, as described in the nebular hypothesis. It's an idea of the spinning cloud of dust made mostly of light elements called nebula, flattened in a protoplanetary disk and became a solar system consisting of a star with orbiting planets. The spinning nebula collected the vast majority of material in its center, which is why the sun accounts for over 99% of the mass in our solar system. So that's or at least that's one short version of what this nebula hypothesis is, but at no point does it talk about smoke. So you've got to be very careful with this, because these guys will sneak these words in, and then they'll appeal to the Quran. I think he's going to give us the verse now. Hopefully Stops can bring that up for us.
No, I have it. But the thing is that the word smoke appears 7 times in the Quran in different ways. And the one that he will be talking about is 41:11, which is something that has been debunked. It's been refuted, debunked, ridiculed over and over and over. And these guys are still bringing it up. And it's so easy to explain why this is wrong.
Well, let's let him make a Stops, then bring up the verse, and we'll read the verse and show it, right? But he used the word smoke. Nowhere in the science does it say it's smoke. So he sneaks this word in, which is begging the question, as we call it, because he's assuming that that's the case, when nowhere in science does it say the case, because that's what the Quran says. So he's trying to slide it in and make it sound as if that's what science says, but it doesn't actually say that. So this is very slippery language. You've got to catch these guys out, because they're not being intellectually honest here.
Years before them, the Quran, it stated, ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى إِلَى السَّمَاءِ وَهِيَ دُخَانٌ. What is the Quran? And I'm going to give you the chapter and verse numbers so you can look it up yourself.
We will.
In the 41st.
Okay.
Did I kill you by opening this, or did you stop?
41:11. No, I've just stopped it there. So let's bring your one in. And then he directed himself to. So we look at Sahih International there.
Okay, then I need to go down a bit.
Yeah. Then he directed himself to the heaven while it was smoke, and said to it and to the earth, "Come, willingly or by compulsion." They said, "We will come willingly." Obviously, they don't speak, so why they would bring this in? This is presumably poetry, but again, it's not accurate, right? In no way is this scientific. If you're going to claim that this is represents science, then you've got to speak in far more
accurate terms.
What's the word? Yeah, and far more not abstract, but concrete terms that doesn't sound as if it's like a poet where you're talking about things, right? Obviously, they're not speaking in any way. But nowhere does it talk about smoke in the science. And Yusuf Ali, does he say smoke? Moreover, he comprehended and it's been, yes, so he also says smoke, and it's even smoke in
it's the word
in the corpus.
dukhan, if I remember correctly.
But smoke is, of course, smoke comes from fire. Fire is certain particles. It's definitely not the case that...
Dukhanun. So it's, that's the smoke. Dukhanun.
Yeah, and if you look up smoke, right, it'll consist of certain particles, and it'll come from a fire. And at no point did this solar system, with the nebula hypothesis, come from smoke. Those particles were not the things. I read it to you as well. Just again, to be clear here, it's a cloud of dust. They will say, "Oh, well, that sounds like smoke." No, it's not. Smoke has a certain composition, and you only get smoke from fire, right? And it's made of light elements called nebulae, flattened, etc. And we can look up what the light elements are, right? But as soon as you start to do this, of course, apologists will go, no. They will try and generalize it, because it sounds better when it's generalized. As soon as you go specific, you see that they're not talking about smoke in any way. So you can't even remotely say that it's like that at all. A dust cloud in the universe is nothing like smoke here on Earth. Oh, well, he was just showing it or whatever. At this point, if that's the claim you want to make, it's your idea has gone out the window. Because now you're trying to generalize when it suits you and be specific when it suits you. That's called cherry picking, and nobody who's paying attention or is thinking critically is going to accept that.
So there are several mistakes in this sentence. Number one is that the composition of gas is not the same as that of smoke. Gas does not contain particles, smoke does. So the first mistake, the grand mistake, there are several smaller mistakes, but the two grand mistakes is, one is that it's talking about smoke, which has nothing to do with gas, so you can't compare it to the nebula theory or anything, because that is always talking about gas. The second one is that neither planets nor smoke can talk. Now, it is very, very clear here. He said to it and to earth, and they said, "We come willingly." So if we come willingly, this means it's a reply. They are talking. neither is possible. So there are two huge scientific mistakes here.
Yeah.
So how could a man in a desert who was illiterate and had no literature, no scientific evidence, no scientific works around him, no scientists around him, no scientific research going on in a desert, have known that 1100 years before people like Immanuel Kant, with all their scientific research and books and libraries working on the works of other scientists, came up with this?
Well, if he had accurately represented the nebula hypothesis, then that would be something of interest. Fortunately for us and for everybody else, and unfortunately for you, all he did, if this was even, we grant to you that he actually said this, or it was written by him, from him saying it, which again is questionable. But let's say that were the case. Fortunately for us, none of that matches what we see there, unless you're going to be so generalized and so coarse-grained to try and make it fit. And then you lose all credibility. So luckily for us, he didn't know that. So your question is, how could a man know this? Well, luckily for you, or unluckily for you and luckily for us, he didn't know it, as much as you're trying to make it sound as if he did. So no problem there. I think
why does he suddenly maintain that Muhammad wrote the Quran? Muhammad didn't write it. It doesn't matter whether he knew it or not.
Yeah.
Okay, he guessed. It was a lucky guess. Okay, let's put that to the test.
No, who's saying that? Why would we say it's a lucky guess? He just didn't get it right. So it's not as if it's a lucky guess. It was wrong information. Not a lucky guess, as if you're not claiming that he got this accurately correct. Remember, in science, we want to be accurate. We don't want to be general and coarse-grained, i.e. have like a vague idea of what we're talking about. And that's vague at best. And as Stops and I've pointed out, there's at least two mistakes in there in any case, which is not what you would accept. No, scientists would accept that.
I remember this from
the moon.
Sorry. Yeah, I remember the same analogy being used in Zakir Naik's speech as well. So he's using the same technique.
Yes, and to the gullible and those who want to believe it, they won't question it. Their brains are not set up to question these things. Fortunately for us, we are doing that.
By the way, there's one thing I want to point out. If you use critical thinking, then you will see that he said to it and to the earth. In other words, earth already exists. Okay, so earth is already something. And he says he directed towards the heaven. So in other words, the earth already exists, and then he creates the universe, or heaven, or whatever heaven is supposed to mean. So if you use critical thinking, you can see that there are more underlying mistakes in this sentence. This is so wrong; it can't be any more wrong.
Yeah, it's I think 41:9 to 12. If you read, these are 4 verses: 9, 10, 11, 12, and if you read all of them, then it paints a picture that Allah created the earth, and the earth seems bigger than the heavens themselves, when in reality, the earth is just a tiny planet.
Yeah, but that's a good pickup as well in that sense, because what you'd ask Muslims is, when the Quran talks about heaven, what's it referring to? But if they say the universe, then, as you quite rightly pointed out, then this verse is entirely wrong, because if he's talking about, hey, the universe and the planets come willingly, well, that doesn't match the nebula at all. Now it's demonstrably, ridiculously false, even worse than it was before. And if they're going to say the heavens is something else, well, how did you establish what the something else is? But if he's talking about the earth, the nebula hypothesis doesn't have an earth in there. All it has is a ring of dust that accretes over time, and you get stars, and then eventually planets form. So if anything, the star is the first thing to form, not the planet Earth. So that's entirely unscientific as well, and that's good. Stops. I missed that one, so that was a good one.
So if you
it's good to remember that as well. If anybody ever brings this up, we can go through this and just show how demonstrably false this is. And these are the sort of things, once you start to look at these things a bit more closely, like we are here, and we're doing this on the fly, but imagine if we had to sit down and take our time to do this, in the sense of like take a couple of days to go into it at the highest level of depth. You could do a whole video just on one sentence alone, and here we're just doing it as we watch this and just applying a bit of critical thinking. It's an abject failure. So the first one is a complete and utter failure. Nothing like reality and science.
If you do what Mustafa just suggested, you go to sentence 9, and it says, do you indeed disbelieve in he who created the earth in 2 days and attribute to him equals? That is the Lord of the worlds. And then you go to the next one. He placed on the earth firmly set mountains over its surface, which is also a mistake, scientific error, because mountains are not set on the surface but come from underneath it. And he blessed it. Well, here we go. You can bless mountains as well. And determined the creature's sustenance for 4 days without distinction. Then you go to the next one. He directed him, and then he directed himself to the heaven while it was smoke and said to come into being. So everything that you can possibly get wrong is wrong here.
Yeah, completely out of order, right? Yeah. All right. Let's move on to let's just see if he's got anything else to say. Otherwise, we move on to the next scientific claim.
In an orbit. How do we know that? Galileo in 1632, he used his invention, the telescope.
Let's just go back a
in
little bit.
1632. He used his, it was a lucky guess. Okay, let's put that to the test. The sun and the moon, they move in an orbit. How do we know that? Galileo in 1632, he used his invention, the telescope.
I'm sorry,
to look and
just stop for a moment, because he smuggles in stuff here. And I get so angry with people like this, because he makes it look as though it says the sun and the moon are in an orbit, each in their own orbit. It does not say that. It says that they are in an orbit around Earth, okay? They swim in their orbit to a predetermined time and predetermined place. And then the Hadith explain that the sun goes and prostrates under the throne of Allah. Then it asks for permission the next day. May I rise? And then Allah says, yes, you may rise. And then it goes to the starting point again of Earth, of the east side of the flat Earth, and then runs around to the west, and then again goes underneath the throne. This is what it says. It doesn't say the way that he is making it sound, is that there is an orbit for moon and an orbit for the sun, because we know today that there is an orbit of the sun also around the galaxy. But that is not what the Quran is talking about.
No, and nobody knew that then. Galileo didn't know that either. I mean, people knew about the moon orbiting the Earth way before Galileo, thousands and thousands of years ago.
Aristarchus was the first one. I may be incorrect, but Aristarchus was the first one to not only estimate, with the naked eye, he was able to estimate the size of the Earth compared to the sun and the moon. I might be incorrect, but correct me if I'm wrong. So that's only Aristarchus or Aristosthenes, one of those two.
Eratosthenes worked out the circumference of the Earth.
Correct.
Yes, I don't remember what he did. He did do something with the moon as well, but his main thing that he's remembered for is sort of working out that the Earth had a curved surface.
Well, he took two poles. One was in Alexandria, one was 100 kilometers south, and he compared the length of them. And by this, he could work out the difference, and he realized that it could only be possible on a sphere, that with the sun exactly at 12 o'clock, that you have different lengths of the shadows. And this is what he measured.
Yeah, but nowhere in the Quran does it talk about the sun orbiting the galaxy, which is what you would need to do if it was scientifically accurate. Swimming in its own orbit is exactly what people in the time thought, that both the moon and the sun orbited around the Earth. So it's consistent with a flat Earth model where the Earth's at the center, and that, of course, is scientifically wrong. So that would be another big fail.
That's why I'm pointing this out, because you get this smuggling in all the time. You need to be so, focused and listen carefully what he says.
Prove that the sun and the moon, they have an orbit, and they move in that orbit. But over 1,000 years before Galileo, with no telescope and no ability to have any scientific work in front of him, how could a man named Muhammad, peace be upon him, in a desert have known that? But in the Quran, in the 21st chapter, 33rd verse, it says,
2133. Just bring it up. Stops while he's reading it.
We really
if you can.
need to do
Oh, you got it.
Yeah. We got to
Just
read.
to show people, right? We just want to show people, because otherwise, maybe people think that we're just making it up or whatever the case is. So we bring the verse
which one
up on
was
screen.
this?
2133.
2133. I'll just let him finish saying it here, and then you bring it up.
Okay.
خلق الليل والنهار والشمس والقمر كل في فلك يسبحون. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us in the Quran? In the 21st chapter, 33rd verse. He says, and it is he who created the night and the day, and the sun and the moon, each traveling in an orbit. The first scientific fact that it shows is that...
Okay, even his thing at the bottom here, if you can see it, right? In an orbit or swimming, right? So they're swimming in an orbit. In other words, they're orbiting, and that's consistent with the flat Earth. And nobody knew that the sun was orbiting, that the spiral galaxy was actually, turning. It takes about 265,000 or 270,000 years for the sun to make one orbit or one rotation around the galactic center.
The black
but
hole,
but
yeah.
that's not. But it's far more consistent with a flat Earth than it is with that idea, because nobody in those prehistoric times, even Galileo, had any idea the sun was orbiting something else. They thought, and maybe not Galileo, but prior to them, they thought that the sun and the moon were orbiting the Earth and nothing else.
Yeah, so it says here, and he is the one who created the night and the day, and the sun and the moon, each in an orbit floating. So how do you create night and day exactly? Because that's just the one part of the earth just facing away from the sun.
But look as well, right? The translation there. They want to throw in the celestial bodies, the heavenly bodies, as if this will now apply to other planets as well. This is where they become, dishonest, because they want to now include this. They're not saying it specifically, but the reader will take that to mean that that talks about all the other planets as well. And if they pressed on it, right, they say, no, we didn't say that. All we said was the heavenly bodies. We're just referring to the sun and the moon. But people who read this won't think it's just the sun and the moon. So putting that in brackets there I would suggest, honest, you don't need it there. If you're only talking about the sun and the moon, that's all you need. You don't need to have that. It's superfluous unless you're trying to give a subtle message without saying it, that this applies to things other than the sun and the moon.
Because I don't think the Arabic text has heavenly bodies or the celestial bodies.
No, that's what's in brackets, right?
Yeah,
No,
so it's just mentions the sun and the moon.
Yeah, but again, they are smuggling in words. Look at the corpus. It says each in an orbit. Now, it says sun and moon, each in an orbit, and it makes sense. But what the translators are doing, they're changing each into all to make it more than just the two. And then they follow this up by what is in the brackets, which doesn't exist. So this is all just trying to smuggle in these things to imply that it might be applicable to more than just these two, where the original, the corpus, doesn't do such a thing. So this is exactly what Rob said. It's dishonest interpretation, trying to push these things onto you so that people get this impression as though it did that, and it doesn't.
Is that the movement of the sun and the moon and the earth, it makes the movement of the day and the night. A man named Muhammad could not have known that.
Of course, Muhammad could have known that. Any imbecile could have known it, and they knew thousands of years ago about the day and the night and the moon orbiting. And nobody knows, and he didn't know that the sun orbited the galaxy. Everybody thought that it orbited the Earth. So it's just demonstrably false.
But it would have been so easy to say, look, we're living on a sphere, and because the sphere is rotating, that's why you get sun and the day and night. Instead, you have the creation of night and day as entities, and then you have the sun and the moon following everything. So everything is the wrong way around. So it would have been so easy to make it correct and to make the Quran much, much better and more accurate, that we would be sitting today and I would be scratching my head. How the hell did they know that? But
I think that's the other part you need to add on, and it's very important, and I'm glad you remember that, Stops, which is to ask Muslims, which do you think more accurately represents reality and science? And you read the Quranic verse, and then you just make up your own one. And we have a spherical body that looks like an apple, and around that goes the moon. And then the earth and the moon then go around the sun, and that goes around this larger body of many, many, many stars. Which one of those two is more accurately represents our scientific understanding? Right? You could make it short. Obviously, I'm just saying it off the top of my head. But you could provide two of them, one that's the Quran and one that accurately represents science in a very concise way, and then just ask a Muslim which one of those two more accurately represents reality.
Yeah.
What do they say? They either have to be dishonest and say it's the Quran, or they have to accept that it's what we said, in which case you're throwing the Quran under the bus.
And the thing is, Saif al-Islam, are you willing to face Uthman? There's nothing willing and nothing grand about facing. We're all prepared to go, to talk to him and cut him down to size, no problem.
And on top of that, to say that the sun and the moon are both moving in an orbit, there is no way a man 1,000 years before Galileo, without a telescope, without any research in front of him, could have known that. But this is in the Quran as well. Okay,
so he just repeats this as if he thinks, and gullible people will be taken in by this, right? If you repeat the claim multiple times, somehow that makes the claim more substantial. Now, again, it takes some work to do this. I mean, I have to be honest, because people do this a lot. They just repeat the claim over and over because they don't have anything better than that, and they summarize what they've just said. So you hear it multiple times, and to the gullible mind, they will go, wow, they've said that multiple times. It must be the case. That's how people who are not thinking critically, that's how brains operate. And you just got to realize that. But all he's doing is repeating himself. There's nothing impressive or substantial about it. It's just a repetition of the claim. And I think it's very clear that this is not the most accurate interpretation by any stretch of the imagination, even if we were as charitable as possible.
And this is a common, Rob, what's funny is that this is actually a very common tactic, not in just apologetic videos like this, but also in khutbahs and speeches, especially during with Shia Muslims and Sunni Muslims and Muharram, and as well as inside the masjid during Friday prayer. So this is very common. They will say something and then repeat it, and then just to, like, it's more of a dramatic performance, that is, just to get it. And then the audience will be like, wow, what did he said something so marvelous, but when in reality he has said nothing. And I have the fortune, like, I should take you guys to a speech like this. Hopefully we can find ones in English. You would be surprised. This is very common. This is a very common tactic.
Yeah.
Another lucky guess, right? Let's keep going.
Oh, so these are all just lucky guesses. Well, luckily for us and unluckily for you, both of these quote-unquote guesses are wrong. So at this moment in time, we've got 0 for 2, but let's keep going.
In 1580, Sir Francis Drake, he circumnavigated the Earth to demonstrate that it was round and not flat. He went all around the world to show that it was round. Even today, some people think it's flat. But this is something, having the ability to go in a ship around the world was able to prove that. 1,000 years before him, a man in a desert that never set sail in the oceans, that had no ability to know any of this, he brought forward a Quran that was revealed by the Creator that told us that the Earth is not only round, but like the egg of an ostrich, a spheroid.
Wait, before you guys say anything, we need to get the verse. So if you know the verse, bring it up. If you don't, we just got to listen to him, and we'll just deconstruct this one as well.
The world is round because the poles is squished like the egg of an ostrich. How could he have known that? But in the Quran, you will find it. And this was 1,000 years before Sir Francis Drake by a man who never set sail into an ocean. Not just that. You may say, okay, these are a lot of these are.
Okay, he's not providing it now. Suddenly he's not providing. Can you guys get it there? Can you get the verse that he's talking about? We need to bring up the verse. I know it's painful, but we need to bring it up. Otherwise, people are going to think
I'll get it quickly.
that he's quoted this accurately, right? And we just need to show that that's not the case.
This is the word verse 7930, actually.
All right, let's get it up there. Stops when you can.
7930.
Let me get it up, 7930, because I've forgotten this, because I haven't heard this for such a long time.
He didn't bring it up, so it's in 7930, Quran 7930.
Because I used to
bring
know
that up.
this.
But Saf is going to send Uthman the link to the Discord server, so I'll post that now. Yes, he's more than welcome. Bring him into Discord, or we'll have a whole Friday here just for him, so he can come in here on a Friday, and we can do it right here on the Discord, on the Gin and Tonic show. But there's the link to Discord. You could join that.
Verse number? 36 verse.
So this is the word that it's all going around this tahaha.
Tahaha. So the
ha means it. That's it.
Yes.
And the daha means to spread.
Yes.
Now, the way that Zakir Naik does it is he says, because it says spread, and the ostrich spreads the earth over his egg, this means it refers to the egg. And now he makes a huge mistake because he says the root of this is dahuya, which it is not. So there's a lot of jippoing going on here to get dahaha to have any kind of reference to an ostrich egg. And if you listen to what he just said, he said it is squashed at the top like an egg, and the egg is the opposite.
But then
the egg has a very significant bulge at the top, which is the opposite of what the Earth is, which is an oblate spheroid, and which is pushed together on both sides, and the egg is exactly the opposite. So,
and the egg is more, because like with the poles, it's like the two flat poles, and then but the egg is shaped very differently. So the Earth's shape, this is Zakir Naik. This was a lie picked out from Zakir Naik's speech specifically, by a lot of Arab Muslims themselves, they picked out this lie that does not necessarily mean the ha-ha. So like the ha-ha does not mean ostrich egg. So he's just implying that message, like it just means the earth, the spread. That's
I think, yeah, it talks about where it has the, the what do you call it? Where it makes a bit of a concave in the flat surface. If you put it on sand or something, it'll leave a little bit of a valley, if you like. But you guys are absolutely right? The egg, it's the poles are long, elongated, lengthwise outwards. Whereas with the Earth, the poles are slightly flattened and the equator is elongated out. So it's almost if you had two hands pressing down from the North and South Pole and squeezing the equator out slightly. That's the oblate spheroid. And the egg is exactly the opposite of that. So again, you wouldn't use an egg. You may use something like, an oversized apple or an orange that's slightly squashed or whatever the case is. There we go. There's some photos that Stops is bringing up.
Even this was invented by Rashad Khalifa, which was adopted by Zakir Naik, popularized.
You see, they've turned the egg on the side. That's not the way they're talking about it, right? The egg would have to be upright. So where the person with the two hands is holding that egg, for example, you'd have to turn the egg 90 degrees in that picture. That egg there would have to be turned 90 degrees, and then it would be standing on the poles, because the way he's got it there, it's like the equator is going around from top to bottom instead of left to right. And so the egg is definitely not the right shape anyway. So there's so much wrong with that particular claim as well, isn't there?
Well, I think here you can see
There's a picture there in the top left, right? That very top left picture, the very underneath the word Google, they're showing it there as well.
Yeah, I like the picture with the ostrich too. Ostrich.
And this is exactly, and the Earth, moreover, have you made egg-shaped.
Yeah, this is a wrong
the funny thing is, if you go and look at the grammar, now the funny thing is, it's a verb. Okay, daha means to spread, which is a verb. So if you go into the Quran, you will see that the verb daha would mean that if you use egg, that means he egged it. So the earth is, he egged it. How does that make sense? Come on, guys.
Yeah, they try to infer things that just aren't there. But when you and I would infer something that's reasonable and straightforward, then how dare we infer this? We've got to go to the scholars. But when these guys want to, they just make up their own inferences that are so demonstrably false. And then it's okay when they can infer something. Nowhere does it say this anyway. And as you say, daha doesn't refer to an ostrich egg in any case. And if it did, it's the wrong shape. So they've got the egg on its side there instead of, on its poles, up the same way the Earth is supposed to be. And then you would see that it's exactly the wrong shape. So you'd have to turn the equator of the Earth top to bottom, and then it would look like an egg. At the moment, the Earth looks like an egg on its side, and that's not the claim. That's not the claim they're trying to make either. Because if you're going to try and have poles, then you're going to have the top and the bottom of the egg being the North and South Pole, and then the shape is just incorrect.
And then just to the right here, you have the Lane dictionary, where this actually is explained. He spread out, forth, expanded, or extended. In other words, he makes it flat. So it's the opposite of what they're trying to say. But then what they said is he made the earth wide or ample, and then also said of an ostrich. He expanded and made wide with his foot or leg the place where he was about to deposit his eggs. So in other words, a very roundabout explanation of something being spread out so that the ostrich has a flat place of where he can go and put his eggs, suddenly becomes the whole thing is egg-shaped because there's a space for the egg. This is so silly.
Yeah, it's terrible reasoning, right? We've talked about it many times. That's why people like, Hamza Sources and this, they've given up with the scientific miracles. They know that this is just laughable. They won't be taken seriously. They are desperate to try and be taken seriously in intellectual circles. The Sheikh and other people, they're not interested in being taken seriously in intellectual circles. They just want to be taken seriously by their followers and not by any of us, right? Because we can see this is utter nonsense. But that's why Tortoise and others like him don't want to take this, because they'd be a laughingstock. Nobody would take them seriously. They wouldn't get to speak to anybody. So they have to stop using this if they want to have any semblance of credibility. But other people, like I say, don't have that concern, and so they will just repeat these things. All right, let's go back to their stops, and I will carry on.
Now let's see what he says.
These are intelligent guesses. Okay, the Big Bang Theory, which is accepted theory today in the Quran, chapter 21, verse 30.
Oh my
21:30.
God. Even there.
No.
No.
Get it up there, and let's just let him finish it,
No.
and then
What was this,
take the-
21:30?
Yeah, let's let him finish saying it, and then we'll bring the verse up. So, stops. Just leave it on him at the moment. I can't see you, by the way. And we'll just let him finish this bit, then we'll cut to that verse.
It was 21:30,
The
right?
light of the moon
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got it.
doesn't come from itself, but it's reflected from the sun. How could a man named Muhammad have known that in the desert, peace be upon him? But the Quran, it revealed it, chapter 25, verse 61.
Okay, whoa. You said two different things here,
Yeah,
right?
the-
First thing
now-
he said,
61 and 21:30 and
are
21.
we all lagging? Guys, can you hear me? Because we're talking over each other, so I don't know if it's lag on my end or lag on your end. Can we all
now
hear each other?
I can hear you perfectly now. I can hear you.
Okay, because I think I just hear us talking over each other every now and again, so I don't know if,
Yeah, I
if
tried
it's
to stop
laggy or
you.
not.
I tried to stop you because I realized that he was going to the next topic. And I said, no, wait, because I have the 21:30 here first, so that we can go and look at this one and then go to the next one. So here, this is the heavens and the earth were a joint entity, which he says has something to do with the Big Bang. Now, this mistake is to the tune of around 10,000 million years. That's the size of the mistake that the Quran is making here, because it's talking about Earth, and Earth was not part of the Big Bang. So, yeah,
But you know what and I'm not saying he's done this, but another particular apologist from Speaker's Corner did. Listen to this. This is how he tried to save this. I kid you not. He said to me, "What is the earth made of?" And I said, "It's made of elements, right? Light and heavy elements." Well, what was the universe originally made of? I said there weren't light and heavy elements at that stage. There were abundance of light elements, but that wasn't at the Big Bang. That was some, I think, 300,000 years after the Big Bang, because there were no light elements at the beginning. It was just plasma. It was so hot that you didn't actually have single molecules at that stage. But eventually, it cooled enough so that gravity could take effect and particles could form. And at that stage, you'd have, I think it's helium and hydrogen. Helium were the light elements abundant at the Big Bang. But the heavy elements that made up the Earth only could have come about through the explosion of stars. So you'd first have stars form, and you'd have to have the supernova of stars, and the heavy elements are generated in the furnace of the larger stars. So that's where that came from. He goes, there you go. You see, it's the same. I kid you not. That's the desperate length that an apologist is trying to go to. I'm not saying it's him, by the way, so let me make it clear. I'm not saying that Farouk has said this, but in order to try and rescue this, when you show them a stop stage that the Earth came 9 billion years after the universe, or at least somewhere in that region, then this is what they'll say. They'll now try and break it down to the component parts, but even that doesn't work, as I've just explained now.
It's amazing, isn't it? Because the funny thing is, if it were to say what you just said as the explanation, again, it would have been perfect. Then it would have been correct. But the way it says it here, it is not.
Yeah,
The other thing, okay, I will there's one more thing that I want to point out here, that the story of a joined heavens and earth and being parted goes all the way to the Matahazi, to something 6,000 years ago. That's how old the story is, that it was picked up again in the epic of Gilgamesh, in the Gilgamesh epic. And then from the Sumerians, it went to the Babylonians, it went to the Assyrians, and then suddenly it rocks up in the Jewish text and then in the Quran. So there's nothing new here. This is an old story that has just been repeated in the Quran.
And not only that, there's even a Chinese legend too about it. Pingu, he separates the heaven and the earth, as well as the god specifically you're talking about is Enlil, and heaven and earth are An and Ki. An and Ki are his parents. So An is, I think one of the other is earth and heaven were his mom and dad. So he has to separate them. And then that's where the creation myth comes in of Enlil. Yes, so An and Ki. And that's where the term Anunnaki comes from, like the superior beings, because technically this was heavens and earth joined together. So
super, that's brilliant info. Yeah.
So
I think keep this verse as well, Stops, because he is going to talk about the made from water thing. So we won't cover that right at this moment in time. But if I remember correctly, that'll come up. But he's now talking. He's jumped onto something else at the moment. So if we go back there, I'll just rewind just a little bit there, because he went straight from this Big Bang and then jumped onto this other claim. So
yeah,
keep that verse, because you're going to come back to the water thing as well and say that how wonderful that is. So let me just go back a little bit here. Oh, a little bit too far. So let me just go back a tiny bit here.
Doesn't come from itself, but it's reflected from the sun. How could a man named Muhammad have known that in the desert, peace be upon him?
Okay, so he's going to give it, I think it's verse 25 something, Stops.
25:61, I believe.
You can just observe that on any night of the, any night that you're
where
out.
do I go?
25:61, I believe.
I still didn't understand it. 25?
61.
61, thank you.
You can go out on any dark or any full moon night, and you will see that the moon is reflecting it. In fact, you can see it with a naked eye. But even if you had the very basic of telescopes, anything that will just magnify a little bit, you can see the surface of it, and you can see that it's reflected light. It's not giving off its own light. And anybody would have understood this, and people way before this understood this. So this wasn't miraculous. This is something any everyday person could observe at the night, during the day, during the night, but even during the day. I mean, you can see the moon during the day.
And then the corpus says, "Blessed is he who has placed in the skies constellations and has placed therein a lamp and a moon shining." So it doesn't say anything about reflected. The moon is shining in this verse, and then the word they use is the Arabic is nur.
I was going to say, it's actually a lot worse.
Muniran.
Because the Muniran is, the funny thing is that this is the word used to describe Allah. So is Allah also a reflected light?
Yes, if you like what you're saying is Allah is reflected light. No, it's supposed to be light itself, right?
Whose light is he reflecting? That of Muhammad.
Exactly. Like it's ridiculous when they make this claim. It's very ridiculous. This is putting something that's not there.
It's amazing.
But the Quran, it revealed it, chapter 25, verse 61, that all of the sun and everything there will extinguish after a certain period of time. The light of the sun will finish. It will become a supernova and be destroyed. This is what the sun...
No, it doesn't say that. Have you got that verse as well?
Yeah, that is. We just opened it. 25.
You got that verse?
Yeah, 25. I don't think he mentioned the verse, but 25:61 doesn't say any of that.
He does. It says at the bottom.
Wait,
you need to go a little bit back.
A little bit back?
This was 1,000 years before Sir Francis Drake by a man who never set sail into an ocean. Not just that. You may say, okay, these are a lot of intelligent
guesses. The cursor away.
Yeah, I can't really. I've got to...
Okay, the Big Bang Theory, which is accepted theory today in the Quran, chapter 21, verse 30. The light of the moon doesn't come from itself, but it's reflected from the sun. How could a man named Muhammad have known that in the desert, peace be upon him? But the Quran, it revealed it, chapter 25, verse 61, that all of the sun and everything there will extinguish.
Okay, sorry guys, I don't know if you are wanting to speak or if you're just talking to each other or talking to yourselves, but you're coming through. So if you want to speak, just say stop. Otherwise, I'm going to carry on, because I don't know if you're like just commentating in the background or you actually want to say something.
Oh no,
I was just repeating.
Yeah, it's just 25:61. I was just saying that we've already done 25:61, because that's one he talks about the reflected light. But carry on. Yeah, so you were just all doing this. 25:61.
After a certain period of time, the light of the sun will finish. It will become a supernova and be destroyed. This is what the scientists tell us today. In the Quran, this was mentioned in chapter 36, verse 38.
36, 38, stop.
It doesn't say that.
Have you got the verse up?
36:38. It's Surah Yasin 38. Okay. So, and the sun runs to a term appointed for it, that is the decree of the Almighty All-Knowing. Yeah, that's it. That just runs a term appointed for it.
Every day it does that.
It does that every day. That's not talking about the end of the earth, the world.
Yeah, it's your stopping point, right? What they assumed presumably was a stopping point is that it went below the horizon of the flat earth. That's its stopping point, and then it miraculously came up again from the other side of the the flat Earth.
Yeah,
but
So
what
where
he is
does it say that
doing,
it's?
it doesn't say that at all. Like, the
yeah, but
sun
what
runs
he's
its course.
doing, he's interpreting it. He is saying
Yeah.
the stopping point is not the stopping point on a daily basis, but it was started 4.5 billion years ago, and it will stop in 4.5 billion years ago. That is what he's saying. The stopping point is. It's an interpretation of the stopping point, because the Quran is vague and ambiguous. That's why you can do it. It doesn't say that it's a daily routine. It doesn't say that. So you can interpret this to mean, well, it started and it's going to stop at some point. That is what he's doing here.
My
Yeah,
goodness.
but
That's
it
not
also
what is
doesn't talk.
intended.
Yeah, and it also doesn't say that it's going to. Well, as somebody else pointed out, it's not a supernova. The sun isn't big enough for a supernova. What will happen is it'll become a red giant, and then eventually, compact down to becoming probably a white dwarf or something like that. So it definitely won't explode as a supernova. So it's just not big enough for it to implode and to explode out like that.
The presence of interstellar matter, something that there is no way a man in a desert couldn't read, would have known about in the Quran, chapter 25, verse 59.
2559?
9.
Yep, got it.
Interstellar matter. He's claiming it's interstellar matter.
Okay,
The one
so
who
it says
created the
here,
heavens and the earth, whatever is between them, in 6
6
days.
periods.
Then he established himself over the throne, the most gracious, so ask him, he is all aware. Excuse me?
So where's the interstellar? What was the claim that he made?
All that is in between. That is the interstellar. Is
Yeah, but
everything that is
the
in
claim that
between.
Uthman just made, what was the claim that he made?
That he's talking about interstellar mass or something.
Yeah.
Interstellar
Quran
dust
talks-
or material.
dust, that, because it says here the heavens and the earth and all that is between.
Between them. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you look at like a view of the galaxies, there's very little in between galaxies. In fact, all of the mass, they get attracted into galaxies, and you get galaxy clusters as the highest level. But between galaxies, it's like almost like a void. There's very little there, as in like material, right? So all of the weight and the visible matter is concentrated in galaxies. So interstellar, meaning intergalactical, or even if he meant between
No,
the
it's
solar
solar
system
systems.
and other
Yeah,
solar
there you
systems,
go.
even that's not so much the case either. All of them, or most of the matter, is concentrated, but you can't even get that from the Quran. It's so vague, it could mean anything. It certainly doesn't say interstellar. And why would you choose that? You could say intergalactical, in which case there is no matter or very little matter there. So this is just, again, his thumb-sucked interpretation that there's interstellar. Nowhere does it say that. But again, what they're trying to do is, just so we're all clear, they're trying to make science match the Quran. When you want to do that, you have to cherry pick and you have to try and make it sound like science. And we're getting a textbook example of exactly how this is done here today. Nobody who's using their critical faculties would take this seriously. And all we're doing is showing how bad it is. Hopefully none of you are, nobody here, even the Muslims, hopefully aren't being, hoodwinked into thinking that this is anything substantial that's being said here.
Yeah. And the thing is, what is the heavens? If it says he who created the heavens, what is the heavens? If the heavens is the universe, there is nothing in between the universe and earth. It is a transition, but there's nothing in between. There's not, we have the earth here and we have the heavens there, and what is in between is something, there's no border or something like that. This is ridiculous. So whoever wrote this had the knowledge exactly of 3rd, 4th, 5th century, what the general knowledge was in the Arabian desert. Nothing more.
Expanding. How could a man named Muhammad have known that in a desert? No universities around him, no scientific research going on. He couldn't even if you put a book in front of him, he couldn't read. But in the Quran, in chapter 51, verse 47, it meant
47. This I know by heart.
51:47. Just a reminder while Stops is bringing this up, right? I told you about the Gish Gallop, right? The Gish Gallop. Throw in as many claims as possible in the shortest amount of time possible, and then hope that your interlocutors don't have time to. But we can stop it here and we can go through it. So go ahead there.
Okay, there's several things here. Number one, we need to appreciate that if something is vast, okay, then it's huge. So even in English, you have the word, like if the king of France went out on his balcony in Paris and he looked over the Tuileries, then he would say that my garden is expansive. In other words, it is huge, it is vast, but it doesn't mean that the garden is expanding. The second thing is that there is no verb here. So from a grammatical construct, it needs to have a verb to be able to say, we are the expander. In other words, we are doing something. But the sentence does not do that. In other words, it's more of an adverb which just explains something which is huge and not an action at all.
But you notice they've even changed the corpus, right? I'm sure the corpus doesn't actually say expanders. And Yusuf Ali, which is the older translation, says the vastness of space. And this idea of expanding and expanders only came into translations after the 1920s.
Mm.
It's saying there, surely it's expanders, but I don't know that it is. We'd have to check that. I think that might have been changed more recently.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. And if you go to somebody like Pickthall, you will also see this. A, B, C, D, here he is. We have built the heaven with might, and we it is who make the vast they've changed it. I have read a different translation of this. Somebody has jippered this.
Yeah, so I think this is being, some of these things are being changed, because originally
Yes.
it was talking about the vastness or the vast extent or whatever the case
Yeah,
is.
the vastness
And
of
this idea
space.
of
Yeah.
expanders and expanding only came after the 1920s. So, and this came, isn't this coincidence, right? It came after, Hubble and his collaborators put forward the idea that the universe was expanding. So the Quran is obviously following science, and science isn't following the Quran, which is to be expected from a man-made book of the 7th century, which is our hypothesis. But okay, so let's go back to this. So is there anything else you guys want to say on this? Because obviously he wants to claim that this says that the universe is expanding. It doesn't actually say that. It says that the universe is vast. And these
We have
new
a
ideas
second
of expander, expanding is newer, quote unquote, interpretations that match science to make the Quran seem like it's more scientific.
Oh, I didn't know that Jippo is ethnic slur. I thought this is just to manipulate. Okay. Thank you for that. The thing is, we have an additional problem, because when Edwin Hubble, he published this in, I think, 1929 or something, and he found out that it is expanding, and because of the redshift, this is the whole Doppler effect and things like this. This is how he determined this. Now, what they did is they adopted this idea. This was Bouquet. He adopted the idea of the expanding universe, but they put there in the translations steadily. It was steadily being expanded. And then in 98, when they found out that it is actually being, that it is accelerating, now they had to go and change the Quran again and take out the steadily, because now it didn't make sense anymore. But you can still find those translations where it still says steadily. And this is the danger of attaching the Quran to science, because the level of accuracy, the degree of accuracy increases, and therefore the conclusions will be updated.
Yeah.
It mentioned the expansion of the universe, something that we take as a scientific fact today. Not just these. If we look at geology, the origins of iron. Iron is an element we find, but as scientists tell us that iron is not made on Earth. Rather, it's made inside super red giants. The stars that are red super giants, that's where iron is made.
He went there. It's the same old. Iron is the, in the ancient Egyptians used to call iron the ores of the heavens. So this is not a new idea.
You guys want to say anything more on this? Or?
Yeah, I want to see the
every element comes from outside of Earth.
Anybody else want to say something?
I want to listen to the verse he refers to. I want to listen to the verse.
Is made, and it comes from the sky and is brought down to the earth with the meteoroids and others hitting their planet. And that's where it came from. That's what scientists, they tell us today.
Oh, sorry, I always forget that I cut this off.
57,
I always forget that I'm
25.
cutting this off. I think he's talking about this one.
Is that 57:25? I think you said.
Yeah. I was a little bit too quick. We have already sent our messengers with clear evidences and sent down with them the scripture and the balance that the people may maintain injustice. And we sent down iron, wherein is great military might and benefits for the people, so that Allah may make evident those who support him and his messengers unseen. Indeed, Allah is powerful and exalted in might. Now the problem is, every single element that we have on this planet was not produced on this planet. They all come from stars. So to single out iron here is quite silly.
Physics. If we look at scientists, they recently discovered the Higgs boson particle, which is smaller than an atom. Recently, we found that this is smaller than an atom. And before that, by looking at the atom and the nuclei and the protons, we saw some things smaller than an atom. But a man named Muhammad in a desert could not have. He didn't have a telescope. He didn't have any of that ability. Dr. Peter Higgs, he got a Nobel Prize for this discovery. But over 1,400 years before him, the Quran, it mentioned that which is smaller than an atom. And this is in chapter 34, verse number 3.
34:3. Let's see if it talks about smaller than an atom. And it refers to the Higgs boson. Because there's many things, quote unquote, smaller than an atom. Depends what you mean by atom, of course. Is an atom the electron that's orbiting the proton, or is it something else? Okay, go ahead.
Actually, the atom that is mentioned here is actually the mustard seed, but today
is
there's
it?
atom in there.
But those who believe say the hour will not come to us. Say, yes, my Lord, it will surely come to you. Allah is the knower of the unseen. Not absent from him is an atom's weight within the heavens or within the earth, or what is smaller than that or greater, except it is in a clear register.
Okay,
all three of them, interesting.
Just...
Yeah, all three of them say atom. I'm sure that's not the actual translation either. Because they wouldn't have known what an atom is. And you were mentioning the mustard seed, weren't you? So.
Okay, now what we have to do is we have to look at darat, offspring, children, offspring, atom, descendants. Okay, this is a wild mix. Okay, what we can do is we can go and look. We don't have the others. So the dictionary says scattered, strewed, sprinkled, sprouted, shot up, began to get grey particles, atoms, specks, motes, ants, particle, the 100th part of a barley corn. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Progeny, posterity, seed drill, violent anger, rain, specks, motes, and aromatic powder sprinkled on meat. So you could use anything here. I don't know what the hell to do
So
with
the common element is like the tiny particle of a corn or a seed or something like that.
Exactly, and I actually read somewhere that this is referring to a mustard seed, the same way as the Bible does, because that was the smallest piece that was known to them.
Oh.
Any aromatic powder sprinkled on meat. So, okay, here they call it barley corn. I don't know what a barley corn is. It's... Oh, goodness.
All right, let's carry on because we're getting close to time now.
Yeah.
So let's continue on here.
We look at biology. NASA in JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory that they have in Pasadena, California, they published a paper. And this was recently published, April 15th, 2014, talking about the water world theory. The life's origins, it all came from the water. Talked about the electric energy naturally produced at the seafloor, that's what gave rise to life. And the fact that 80% of cryptoplasma, which is what cells are made of, is all water. 80% water. Me and you were made 80% of water. But 1,400 years before NASA, without the JPL lab, without any of that research, the Quran, it told us, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلُّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَفَلَا يُؤْمِنُونَ? What did the Quran tell us? It tells us that in chapter number 41, verse number 11, that we made, Allah says, we made every living thing from water. And then He puts a challenge. Will you then not believe?
Okay, so Stops, you go through this again quickly. If you, I won't, we won't repeat it. I think let's do one or two of us.
There are several references to everything being made out of water. Now, number one, what he is saying, if life originated in water, that means he is, number one, referring and admitting to abiogenesis. Number two, he is referring to human beings having been evolved from, I don't know, a common ancestor. Could it be bacteria, whatever? The third thing is, it doesn't say anything of what he says. It doesn't say that we contain cells and that's on. Number one, the cell contents, I mean, your teeth are not made from water. So saying that we are made from water is absolutely silly. We contain water. So the Quran could have easily been improved by just simply saying we contain water. It doesn't do that. Next one.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big things. They want to conflate contain and create, and that's not the same thing.
After looking at all of these scientific miracles, and we're going to give you a link in the description to the book, the Bible, the Quran, and Science by Dr. Mirs Burkai, and other books that will show hundreds of scientific facts that are taken as fact that are mentioned in the Quran, and not a single prediction in the Quran is wrong. How could it be that this is except through divine source? A man in the desert could get one guess or two or three, but not every time. So I invite you to read the Quran yourself, to ask questions. In the description, we have a link. You can send us questions. Don't spend your life without knowing the truth of where you came from and what your purpose is, as mentioned clearly in the Quran.
Okay, there we go. So obviously we've done exactly what he said. We've read those verses out loud to you. And I think you can clearly see that if we were the most charitable humans on earth, the best you can say is you could take some vague interpretation, one of these. You can't argue that it's the most likely, even if we granted that. And in many cases, these are demonstrably scientifically wrong. So that's being as charitable as we possibly could, or at least I'm being as charitable as possible. There might be one or two that you could loosely say, oh, well, you could kind of, if you squint your eyes, take that interpretation. And it's not absolutely completely wrong, whereas other ones completely are. And so I think, that's why more intelligent Muslims have abandoned this idea. Now, this was 2018. Maybe he's updated. But if he still wants to believe this and he wants to come on here and try and defend this, then obviously we're happy to do that. Over to you guys.
He says we should ask him questions, which I did, because we all know that in 2012 I turned this around after having looked at these scientific miracles, and I realized they're all wrong. And instead of going and saying, well, this one is wrong, this one is wrong, this is wrong, I turned it around and said, well, tell me something that is correct. And this is where my challenge comes from. Please provide one single statement from the Quran that is verifiably correct. And so far, since 2012, not one Muslim has been able to come up with one single statement that is verifiably correct. It's much easier this way around than going through all of these individually and proving and showing that they are wrong. Rather let them show that something is correct. They can't.
And he refers to the study done by Maurice Bucaille. And I think we talked about him last time too. Like he wasn't exactly an expert in archaeology. And he just made these assumptions that, this Ramses was, killed by drowning or something like that. And this got very popular. This was so popular, but it's been debunked many times.
I've made a whole series about this, about all these different claims of what happened, because you can see all this in the Jewish Apocrypha. You can see exactly the story of the Pharaoh, and you can see exactly where the Quran copied this from. So this is quite laughable what this guy, this Bouquet guy, please. And by the way, last week we talked about Moore, and what I found out is that he died in 2019. But there was nobody who said anything. What I'd like to do actually is speak to somebody who lives somewhere in Canada, somebody around somewhere in Canada, to find out, to take a photo of where Moore was buried, that he is not on a Muslim cemetery.
Wait, so where is he buried? I'm in Canada right now.
Well, I didn't want anybody to tell that. I don't know. I think it's somewhere in Ontario. I think it's somewhere. I would have to check where his varsity was and where he was living and things like that, because I only managed to call him, but this was a mobile phone, and I got an email address, and that's it. So yeah.
Oh wow. So yeah.
Anyway, so Moore died. Bouquet is long dead, and he's on a Christian cemetery. And he was so convinced of Islam and that everything is correct that he did not convert to Islam. And this is very, very silly. He's not an Egyptologist or anything, and yet he wrote an entire book about Egyptology. And this is a big joke. It's a joke. It's terrible. Anyway, nothing here is correct. Nothing here has convinced me of anything being correct in the Quran. I'm sorry. Should do a show on Karen Armstrong. Oh my God. Yes, sir, do you want me to throw up? I mean, every time I hear her voice, I just want to run because she has this most arrogant, most irritating voice. All right. Rob, last comment from your side?
Yeah, I've done that, so I'm all good.
But it was nice how you drove us through this. Okay, what remains to be done is we need to look at a hadith for the day, for the week. And I selected this one. The Prophet said, amongst the trees there is a tree, the leaves of which do not fall and is like a Muslim. Tell me the name of that tree. So this is a quiz. And everybody started thinking about the trees of the desert areas. And I thought of the date palm tree. The others then asked, please inform us, what is that tree, O Allah's Messenger? He replied, it is the date palm tree. This is the wisdom of Muhammad, that there's a tree where the leaves don't fall and it's like a Muslim. Now, why is a Muslim like a date palm tree? This I don't understand. A Muslim doesn't have leaves, they don't fall out, so I don't know. Am I missing something? Mustafa, help us.
I think it's Ibn Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. I think he's narrating this hadith, whether it was him or his father. So he's like trying to take credit for, hey, I thought of a date palm tree. And Muhammad said the same thing. Hey, look at me, I'm so special, right? So in a way, he's kind of like inserting himself into it too. So It's a very self-serving hadith. Whoever narrated this, it's very self-serving.
But why is a Muslim like a date palm tree?
I don't know. It's it's in the middle of a desert, I guess. So, but I don't live. I used to be a Muslim. I don't live in a desert. I lived in the nice valleys of Islamabad. It was a nice, beautiful valleys with like trees and like absolute greenery.
Okay. All right, guys, let's leave it here. This was a very relaxed session, except for poor Rob. He had to go and stop every 2 minutes. No, it's just that I don't know why, when we said something, then it took some time before it arrived in your headset that you could react to it. I don't know what happened today, that it seemed to be a little bit later. So, thank you very much to the people in the chat. Thank you very much to the people on the panel. Mustafa, do you want to say anything in the end?
All right, brothers on the panel, and brothers and sisters on the comments and chats. I don't know what's the goodbye, because I always say Khuda Hafiz, but I realize it's Persian. So I don't know what the Islamic version is. Okay, I will just say this. Salam, Assalamu alaikum. Khuda Hafiz, and thank you for this lovely discussion.
Khuda Hafiz, yes. All right, guys. See you next Friday on the Gin and Tonic Show. Good night.
Good night.